The massive alien ship appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's orbital space was empty except for satellites and space stations. The next, a vessel larger than any human-made structure hung above the planet like a dark cloud. Global panic lasted exactly 6 hours before the first message arrived. People of Earth, the transmission began, displaying a tall, blue-skinned creature with 4 arms and gleaming silver armor. I am High Commander Vex of the Galactic Empire. Your primitive civilization has been noticed by our border patrols. You have 2 choices: join our empire as a vassal state or face the consequences. In the United Earth Council chamber, 50 representatives from Earth's nations sat in stunned silence. The alien's message continued playing on the main screen. You have achieved basic spaceflight and rudimentary AI. Impressive for such a young race, but nothing compared to our might. We rule 10,000 worlds. Our smallest fleet could turn your cities to ash. The alien commander's upper arms crossed while his lower ones gestured dismissively. You have 30 Earth days to submit. Choose wisely. The screen went dark. Council President Thomas Miller stood up slowly, his weathered face showing no fear. Well, he said, looking around the room, I guess first contact could have gone better. A few nervous laughs broke the tension. What are our options? Asked the representative from Africa. We can't fight an empire of 10,000 worlds. Miller pressed a button on his desk. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a sleek warship. Its dark hull seemed to absorb light, and its arrow-like design spoke of both beauty and deadliness. This is the ECS Defiant, Miller said. Our first and only faster-than-light capable warship. We finished it 3 months ago. One ship. The European representative stood up, angry. They probably have millions. One very special ship, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Captain James Walker entering the chamber. He walked with the confidence of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment, even if he hadn't known it. Walker was not what most people expected in a starship captain. No cape, no medals, no dramatic uniform. He wore a simple blue flight suit with Earth's flag on the shoulder. His gray hair was cut short, and his face showed more laugh lines than frown lines. But his eyes held the kind of sharp intelligence that had helped humanity survive everything nature had thrown at them. The Defiant isn't just a warship, Walker continued, reaching the center of the chamber. It's a test bed for every breakthrough technology we've developed in the last 50 years. Things we've kept secret, hoping we weren't alone in the universe. He smiled, hoping, but preparing in case we weren't alone. The room grew quiet as Walker brought up new images, quantum phase shields that adapt to any weapon, an AI system that learns and evolves during combat, and weapons. His smile grew wider. Well, let's just say we have a few surprises. But it's just one ship, someone shouted. So was the Trojan horse, Walker replied calmly. Sometimes one is all you need. President Miller stepped forward. The question before this council is simple. Do we submit to becoming slaves, or do we show them what humanity can do? The vote took less than 5 minutes. It was unanimous. As Walker left the chamber to board his ship, Miller caught up with him. The fate of Earth depends on you and your crew, Captain. Are you sure about this? Walker looked up at the sky, somewhere beyond which the Empire's ship waited. They expect us to kneel, he said. They expect us to be primitive, scared animals who will give up our freedom for safety. He turned to Miller with determination in his eyes. I think it's time someone taught the Empire that humanity doesn't follow anyone's expectations. Good hunting, Captain, Miller said, extending his hand. Walker shook it firmly. When I return, he said, humanity will either have earned its place among the stars, or I won't return at all. The next day, ECS Defiant lifted off from Earth, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams with it. The Empire had demanded an answer within 30 days. They were about to get one they wouldn't forget. The ECS Defiant hung in Earth's orbit, its dark hull reflecting the distant starlight. Inside, Captain Walker walked through the ship's corridors, inspecting final preparations. His footsteps echoed against the metal floor as he made his way to the engine room. "How are we looking, Marcus?" he asked, entering the large chamber filled with humming machinery. Chief Engineer Marcus Reed didn't look up from his control panel. His hands moved quickly over the glowing displays as he made final adjustments. Tools floated in zero gravity around him, held in place by magnetic fields. "The quantum core is stable, Captain," Marcus said, finally turning around. His dark skin was covered in sweat despite the room's cool temperature. "But there's something you need to see." Walker moved closer to the main display. Complex diagrams showed the ship's power systems, all centered around a glowing blue sphere. "When we activated the core for full power," Marcus explained, pointing to several readings, "it started learning. The energy output is 30% higher than our best simulations predicted." Walker smiled. "And the Empire's sensors won't detect a thing. As far as they're concerned, we're running on basic fusion power. They'll think we're centuries behind them." The ship's intercom crackled. "Captain to the bridge. Science Officer Hayes reports urgent findings." 5 minutes later, Walker stood on the bridge, looking at a different set of displays. Linda Hayes, the ship's lead scientist, pointed to a series of energy patterns. "We intercepted these from the Empire's ship," she said. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Their shield technology is based on fixed energy patterns. They've probably been using the same designs for centuries." "And ours?" Walker asked, though he already knew the answer. Linda brought up a new display showing the Defiant's adaptive shields. "Ours change and evolve. Every hit they land teaches our shields something new. The more they attack, the stronger we get," Walker finished. He turned to the ship's main view screen, where Earth hummed like a blue jewel. "What's the status of Atlas?" A calm voice answered from the ship's speakers. "All systems operational, Captain." Atlas, the ship's artificial intelligence, had been learning and growing since activation. "I have completed analysis of known Empire battle tactics. They are predictable." Walker nodded. The Empire had ruled so long, they'd forgotten how to innovate. They'd forgotten that real strength came from being tested, from having to fight for survival. Humanity had never forgotten that lesson. "Show me the weapon systems," he ordered. New displays lit up around the bridge. The Defiant carried no ordinary weapons. Its main gun used quantum entanglement to bypass shields entirely. The secondary weapons could adapt their energy frequency to match enemy shield weaknesses, but the ship's true power lay in its ability to learn and change during battle. "All crew to battle stations," Walker announced over the intercom. "This is not a drill." As his crew rushed to their positions, Walker thought about humanity's history. Every time they'd faced extinction, they'd survived. Every time they'd been told something was impossible, they'd found a way. Now, the galaxy's greatest empire thought one human ship would be an easy target. They were about to learn otherwise. "Engineering reports ready," Marcus called from his station. "Science Division standing by," Linda added. "Weapons primed," Weapons Officer Tom Barnes reported. "Atlas?" Walker asked. "All systems at peak efficiency, Captain, ready to begin combat calculations." Walker took his captain's chair, fastening the safety harness. "Plot a course to the Empire's battle group. Time to show them what one human ship can do." The Defiant's engines flared to life, their true power hidden from enemy sensors. As they accelerated away from Earth, Walker felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. They were about to fight an empire with a single ship. But what the Empire didn't know was that this ship, like humanity itself, was far more than it appeared to be. On the bridge of the Imperial command ship Eternal Glory, Commander Richard Stone watched the tiny blip that represented Earth's only warship. His lips curled into a smile that held no warmth. "They sent one ship," he said, his voice carrying across the massive bridge. "One primitive ship to face the might of the Empire." The alien officers around him laughed. Stone had earned his place among them over years of loyal service. His human ancestors had joined the Empire centuries ago, and he'd spent his life proving that at least some humans knew their proper place in the galaxy. "My lord," one of his officers called out, "the news networks are requesting permission to broadcast." Stone nodded. "Let them all see. Let every world in the Empire watch as we teach these upstarts a lesson." Across 10,000 worlds, aliens gathered around view screens. The Empire's news networks showed the same images: Earth's lone ship, looking small and fragile against the backdrop of space. "Behold," the news anchors announced, "the arrogance of Earth. They dare to challenge the Empire with a single vessel." In luxury homes and crowded bars, in royal palaces and worker dormitories, the Empire's citizens watched and laughed. Some felt pity. A few felt anger at such disrespect. But most simply enjoyed the entertainment. On 100 conquered worlds, former warrior races who had fought the Empire watched with different eyes. They saw something familiar in Earth's defiance, something they had lost long ago. Stone's battle group spread out in perfect formation. 5 massive warships, each capable of destroying a small moon, moved to surround the human vessel. "Send them a message," Stone ordered. "Let's see if they'll surrender before we destroy them." The communications officer obeyed. "Human vessel, this is your only warning. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your ship will make a fine addition to the Imperial Museum of Conquered Civilizations." On the Defiance Bridge, Captain Walker listened to the message without expression. "Atlas, are you recording the Empire's transmissions?" "Yes, Captain," the AI responded. "They are broadcasting our encounter to approximately 94% of inhabited Imperial worlds." Walker smiled. "Good. Send them our reply." Back on the Imperial flagship, Stone received the human response. A single line of text appeared on his screen. "Come and take it." Stone's face turned red with rage. "They mock us." "Us?" He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their engines. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. Let them float helpless while we take them apart piece by piece." The Imperial ships moved closer, their massive guns charging. Energy readings spiked as targeting computers locked onto the Defiant. "My lord," an officer called out nervously, "their ship. There's something strange about their power readings." "Impossible," Stone snapped. "Their technology is primitive. Our sensors show only basic fusion drives." But doubt crept into his voice. Something about the human ship's movements seemed wrong. It wasn't running. It wasn't trying to dodge. It was just waiting. "All ships, open fire," Stone ordered. "Show them what real power looks like." The space around them lit up as 5 Imperial warships fired their main guns. Each blast carried enough energy to vaporize a city. On screens across the galaxy, aliens leaned forward. This was it, the moment the upstart humans would learn their lesson. But in the target zone, the tiny human ship wasn't there anymore. "Where did they go?" Stone demanded, jumping from his chair. "Find them." "Sir," another officer shouted, "they're behind us." Stone spun around just as the Defiant appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. Its hull was glowing with strange energy patterns no Imperial scanner could understand. And then it fired its first shot. The Empire was about to learn that sometimes the greatest mistake you can make is giving your enemy an audience. The Defiant burst out of faster-than-light travel near a dense asteroid field. Behind them, the Imperial fleet followed, their massive ships looking like angry predators chasing prey. "They're still following our energy trail, Captain," Linda reported from her science station. "But they haven't realized it's fake yet." Walker nodded, a slight smile on his face. The Defiant had been leaving false energy signatures for the past 6 hours, leading the Imperial fleet exactly where they wanted them to go. "Atlas," Walker called out, "how many times have they fallen for the same trap?" The AI's voice held a hint of amusement. "This is the 4th time they have pursued us into a tactically disadvantageous position, Captain. They appear incapable of considering that a primitive species might be leading them deliberately. On the Imperial command ship, Commander Stone was growing more frustrated by the minute. Why can't we catch them? Our ships are faster, stronger. Sir, his navigator said nervously, they're heading into the asteroid field. Stone slammed his fist on his chair. Follow them. They can't keep running forever. But the Defiant wasn't running. As the ship slipped between massive space rocks, Marcus kept a close eye on his engineering displays. Power reading stable, Captain. The quantum core is running silent. Tom, Walker turned to his weapons officer. Are the mines in position? Yes, sir, Tom replied with a grin. All 20 quantum mines are hidden in the asteroids. The Empire's sensors can't detect them. Walker watched as the Imperial ships entered the field. Their massive size made it hard for them to maneuver between the asteroids. They had to blast rocks out of their way, creating chaos in their own formation. Now, Walker ordered quietly. Tom pressed a button on his console. Throughout the asteroid field, quantum mines activated. But they didn't explode. Instead, they created a web of energy that connected dozens of asteroids. Energy web complete, Atlas reported, calculating maximum safe acceleration. Walker opened the ship-wide comm. All hands, brace for high-G maneuvers. The Defiant suddenly changed direction, using the asteroids like a slingshot. The energy web they'd created helped pull several large asteroids along with them. On the Imperial ships, alarms blared. Sir, Stone's sensor officer shouted. The asteroids. They're moving toward us. Impossible. Stone watched in horror as his perfect formation was broken apart by a cascade of space rocks, all moving in patterns that defied normal physics. Evasive action. But it was too late. The Imperial ships were too big, too slow to dodge. They weren't destroyed. The Defiant's attack was too precise for that. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a maze of spinning asteroids, their engines damaged by perfectly aimed shots they never saw coming. All Imperial ships have lost main engine power, Linda reported with satisfaction. They're stuck there until help arrives. Walker stood from his chair. Open a channel to Commander Stone. Stone's angry face appeared on the screen. His perfectly pressed uniform was now wrinkled, and his hair was a mess. You planned this from the start. Of course we did, Walker replied calmly. Did you really think we survived on Earth by being predictable? By following rules made by others? Humanity learned long ago that the best way to win is to change the game entirely. He nodded to Tom, who pressed another button. Around the Imperial ships, small devices attached to the asteroids began broadcasting. We've left you some entertainment while you wait for rescue, Walker said. A complete history of Earth's military victories against superior forces. I recommend starting with the Battle of Thermopylae. You might learn something. The Defiant turned gracefully and accelerated away, leaving behind 5 Imperial warships trapped in a web of asteroids, forced to watch documentaries about how humanity had always turned weakness into strength. And somewhere in the Empire, on 100 worlds, former warrior races began to remember what it felt like to fight against impossible odds and win. The Defiant's first shot streaked across space like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't aimed to destroy, just to prove a point. The beam hit the nearest Imperial ship's shields and passed straight through them, cutting a clean line across its hull. Alarms blared across the Imperial fleet as systems they thought were impossible to bypass failed. Impossible. Commander Stone shouted, watching the damage reports flood his screens. They're weapons. They're not following any known laws of physics. Inside the Defiant, Captain Walker stood calmly at his command station. Atlas. Analysis of their shield response. Their shields are attempting to adapt, Captain, the AI reported, but they can only change patterns every 3.7 seconds. Our quantum weapons bypass them completely. Linda Hayes called from her science station. Captain, they're powering up their main weapons again. All ships. Full power to adaptive shields, Walker ordered. Let's show them what we can really do. The Imperial fleet fired everything they had. The space around the Defiant lit up like a new sun as energy beams and plasma bolts converged on the human ship. On screens across the galaxy, aliens watched in anticipation. Surely no single ship could survive such an assault. But when the energy storm cleared, the Defiant still hung there, its hull glowing with strange patterns of light. Shields at 97% and rising. Marcus reported from engineering, excitement in his voice. The quantum core is learning from their attacks. Each hit makes us stronger. Walker nodded. Time to return the favor. Target their weapon systems. Non-lethal hits only. We're here to send a message, not start a war. The Defiant moved like no ship the Empire had ever seen. It danced between Imperial ships, its quantum weapons striking with surgical precision. Where Imperial ships were huge and powerful but slow, the Defiant was small, fast, and impossible to predict. Their ship is violating all known combat protocols. An Imperial officer shouted. They're not following any standard attack patterns. Stone gripped his command chair so hard his knuckles turned white. Of course they're not following protocols. They're humans. They've never seen our combat manuals. On the Defiant's bridge, Tom Barnes grinned at his weapons console. Target locked on their main power conduits. One shot could disable their whole fleet. No, Walker said firmly. We're not here to humiliate them. Just show them we're not as primitive as they think. He turned to the communications officer. Open a channel to all Imperial ships. The Empire's crews watched in shock as Walker's image appeared on their screens. He spoke calmly, as if he wasn't in the middle of a battle. This is Captain Walker of the ECS Defiant. You've seen what one human ship can do. We could disable your entire fleet right now, but that's not why we're here. We came to deliver a message. Earth will not bow. Earth will not serve. Earth will meet you as equals, or not at all. Before Stone could respond, the Defiant fired again. This time, its quantum beams targeted the Imperial ship's communication arrays, cutting off their ability to call for reinforcements. All right, Walker said to his crew. Phase 1 complete. Now comes the fun part. He smiled at their confused looks. We've shown them we can fight. Now we show them we can think. The Defiant's engines flared to life, and before the Imperial ships could react, it jumped to faster than light speed, leaving the damaged but intact Imperial fleet behind. On 10,000 worlds, the Empire's citizens sat in stunned silence. They had expected to watch a primitive race being put in its place. Instead, they had seen something unprecedented. An Imperial battle group fought to a standstill by a single ship. And this was just the beginning. 3 days after the asteroid field trap, the Defiant waited at the edge of Imperial space. Behind it floated a massive space station, the Empire's main broadcasting center. From here, the Empire controlled all official news to its 10,000 worlds. Imperial reinforcements approaching, Captain, Linda announced from her science station. 15 warships, much bigger than the last group. Walker stood at the center of his bridge, looking calm despite the odds. Are they broadcasting? Yes, sir, Tom replied from weapons. Every channel, every world. They're calling it the end of human arrogance. Walker smiled. Perfect. Just where we want them. He turned to his crew. Remember, everyone, we only get one shot at this. Atlas, begin recording. Ready, Captain. The AI responded. The Imperial fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their massive ships forming a half-circle around the Defiant. This time, they were led by the Empire's finest admiral, a tall, reptilian alien named Drax. Human vessel, Drax's voice boomed across space. Your game ends here. Surrender now, and we may spare your planet. Walker nodded to his communications officer. Send our reply. All channels. The image of Walker standing on his bridge was suddenly broadcast to every screen in the Empire. But he wasn't speaking to Drax. He was speaking to everyone watching. People of the Galactic Empire, he began, his voice clear and strong. "You've watched us for days. You've laughed at our single ship. You've waited for us to be destroyed. But ask yourselves this, why hasn't it happened yet?" On his flagship, Drax growled, "Silence them. Fire all weapons." The Imperial fleet opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the Defiant. But something was different this time. The human ship's hull began to glow with blinding light. The quantum core, hidden for so long, finally showed its true power. "Now, Marcus," Walker ordered. In engineering, Marcus threw every switch on his board. Quantum core at full power, all systems ready. The Defiant didn't dodge the Imperial weapons. Instead, it absorbed them. Each hit made the ship glow brighter, until it looked like a newborn star. "You see," Walker continued speaking to the Empire's citizens, "we could have built a fleet. We could have made 1,000 ships. But we chose to make one perfect ship instead. Because humanity learned long ago that it's not about how many ships you have. It's about how far you're willing to go to remain free." Tom's fingers flew across his weapons console. "Quantum wed ready, Captain." "Do it," Walker ordered. From the Defiant, waves of energy spread out like ripples in a pond. Where they touched Imperial ships, all power died. Weapons went dark. Engines stopped. Even life support switched to emergency backup. The entire Imperial fleet hung powerless in space. "We don't want your empire," Walker's voice echoed across the galaxy. "We don't want your worlds. We just want to be left alone. But if you force us to fight—" He paused, letting everyone see the 15 dead warships around his single vessel. "Well, you've seen what one human ship can do." On thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched in silence. Many had never seen Imperial ships defeated before. Some had never even dreamed it was possible. "The choice is yours," Walker finished. "Treat Earth as equals, or face the consequences. Because this one ship, it's just the prototype. And unlike you, we're still learning, still growing, still inventing new ways to defend ourselves." He signaled to cut the transmission, but not before everyone saw the Defiant power up its engines, ready to head home. Behind it, 15 of the Empire's finest warships drifted helplessly, broadcasting their defeat to every corner of the galaxy. The message had been delivered. Now they would see if the Empire was wise enough to listen. The great hall of the Imperial Palace fell silent as Captain Walker entered. 1 month had passed since the Defiant's message shook the Empire to its core. Now representatives from all 10,000 worlds gathered to witness something unprecedented. A treaty signing with a single planet species. Walker walked alone, his boots echoing on the marble floor. He wore his simple blue flight suit, refusing the formal robes the Empire had offered. Behind him, on massive screens, the Defiant floated in orbit above the Imperial capital world. The Emperor himself, a being of swirling energy contained in a crystalline form, waited at the far end of the hall. Next to him stood Commander Stone and Admiral Drax, both looking considerably humbler than before. "Captain Walker of Earth," the Emperor's voice resonated through the hall. "You have caused quite a stir in our empire." Walker stopped at the designated spot and nodded respectfully. "That was the plan, Your Majesty." A ripple of shocked whispers ran through the crowd at his casual tone. The Emperor's crystalline form flickered with what might have been amusement. "In 1 week," the Emperor continued, "you showed us something we had forgotten. Innovation, adaptability, the strength that comes from being tested." The Emperor turned to address the gathered representatives. "We have ruled so long, we forgot what made us strong in the first place." On screens throughout the hall, images appeared. The Defiant dancing through Imperial formations, the asteroid trap, the final demonstration of power. But now, there were new images too. Earth's shipyards revealed, showing 5 more vessels under construction, each different from the last. "The Defiant was never meant to fight a war," Walker explained. "It was meant to prove a point. Each ship we build is unique, each one an experiment. Because that's what humanity does. We never stop learning, never stop improving. Admiral Drax stepped forward. And the quantum core, the adaptive shields. How long have you had these technologies? Walker smiled. We developed them because you were coming. Earth's nations united and built the Defiant in just 3 years, after we detected your first scout ships at the edge of our solar system. Another wave of whispers swept the hall. 3 years to develop technologies that the Empire hadn't matched in centuries. The Emperor raised its crystalline arms for silence. Today, we sign a new kind of treaty. Not of submission, but of alliance. Earth will join the Empire, not as a vassal, but as a full member world, with all rights and privileges. Stone spoke up, his voice carrying the new respect. And in return, Walker said, we share our technology. More importantly, we share our way of thinking. The Empire has grown stagnant, relying on its size and ancient power. We'll help you remember how to innovate, how to adapt. The Emperor moved to the treaty table. There is more. Many worlds watch this broadcast. Many worlds see how one planet's determination earned respect from the Empire. They will learn from this. They already have, Walker replied. Change is coming to the Empire, Your Majesty. The only question is whether you'll lead it or follow it. As Walker signed the treaty, cheers erupted throughout the hall. But the loudest celebrations came from the former warrior races watching from their worlds. They had seen something they thought lost forever. The power of defiance, of standing up against overwhelming odds. Later, as Walker walked back to his ship, Stone fell into step beside him. You knew, Stone said. You knew this would change everything. Walker nodded. Earth learned long ago that real strength isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about turning them into friends. The Defiant lifted off from the Imperial capital, no longer alone. Across Earth, shipyards hummed with activity as humanity prepared to take its place among the stars. They had earned their position not through conquest or submission, but by showing the galaxy that sometimes the strongest steel comes from the smallest forge. And in the years that followed, when people spoke of the Empire's golden age, they always began the story the same way, with one small ship that taught a galaxy-spanning empire the true meaning of strength.